Matt.
Rich.
Money Matters, episode 9.
9, almost double digits.
Almost double digits. We're on our way to triple digits.
Yes.
I'm sure. At least, 90 more.
Yeah. Another year and a half, but
yeah, exactly. Soon enough. Well, I know when you were out, when you were buying your house and you were getting ready, I think it was episode 5. I had Jeremy Chartier, Tall Pine Properties, rookie wholesaler, getting into the business of wholesaling. I had him in. We briefly touched on kind of what he's doing, and we got him back here today to pick his brain and let him kind of dive a little bit deeper on what he does.
Sweet.
You know what wholesaling is, or an idea, Matt?
I got an idea. I don't know the whole, general. Well, I should say I know the general premise, but I don't understand even how it's done. What the day-to-day life looks like. What happens after you secure the contract, things like that.
Sure. All right. Well, maybe those are some things that Jeremy can help us get answers to.
Yes.
We got Jeremy here. Jeremy, hello.
Yeah, hey guys.
Welcome back. I hear
thanks.
your daughter's down for a nap, so that's perfect timing. Hence not in studio, but got you on there, so that's great. So I know last time we chatted, it was about some wholesaling, a long-term rental property that you had purchased. But I think, there's probably some more items that you can cover as far as what type of stuff you do. Again, like Matt said, maybe what's a day-to-day, like the contracts, stuff like that. How you go about, finding things and, who you've got on your team to help you and that type of stuff. Kind of give us an idea as to what that looks like.
Yeah, so kind of the reason for wholesaling, for me at least, is really to build capital. Now, there's some people who wholesale, that's all they do. They don't ever really close on a property. They don't really want to close on a property, and they'll try to just get stuff under contract and flip it to other investors. For me, I guess the long-term goal is to acquire as many rentals of my own as I can. But in order to do that, I need to kind of come up with some capital and continue to work on my marketing. So wholesaling is a great way, especially for somebody who's newer, to kind of build up that capital to work with and get some rental property. So,
well, and being in, kind of deep into real estate, and if that's sort of your goal, and you're also trying to build capital, some people will work, 50 hours a week at their primary job, or 50 hours, 60 hours at a primary and a secondary job. But it sounds like you're like, hey, I want to be in real estate. This is what I want to do, so I might as well get a job that is within real estate that can help me build the capital I need to continue to do what I want to do. So then you're sort of like immersed in the real estate field, to be able to kind of scale and do what you're trying to do, which is nice because you're in 100% on it.
No, that's a good way to put it, because, you could work your whole life slaving away and just basically get enough to purchase one rental property every year or something like that. I don't know, a lot of people try to shoot for that. I think that on Bigger Pockets with Brandon Turner, he's not the host anymore, but I remember one episode he was talking about this kind of theory that he calls the stack, where year one, you get into real estate investing and you want to purchase rental properties, you buy a single family. And then the next year, you kind of take those lessons and potentially cash flow that you've earned, and then you buy a 2-family. And then the next year, you buy a 3-family, and so on and so forth. So, I really actually like that kind of ideology of getting in, kind of started with it and starting small. But, I also feel like people who buy multifamily as opposed to starting off with a single family, the transaction process is really similar, as long as it's smaller, like a 2 to 4 unit. So you might as well kind of start off with something like that, and you're hedged against risk a little bit more when you have multiple tenants in a property too, as opposed to if you had like a single family house and you're renting it and your renter decided to leave and you're having a hard time getting a tenant, you have a 100% vacancy rate at that point. So
It's actually funny to hear you say that because Rich has said that before that I never actually thought about it.
We just talked about that last episode.
Yeah,
Literally
last
the
episode.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's funny to just hear it reiterated. Like, okay, yeah, like that's the way that the investor thinks of. There is ways to hedge the risk. There is ways to make it less risky on yourself. And obviously, the more units you own, the more you're doing that.
yeah, exactly. And there's people who kind of, like the hot thing now is short-term rentals, where people will put their properties on like Airbnb and VRBO, and so they can get a lot higher of a cash flow from those too. But so you don't necessarily need a ton of rentals in order to kind of hit your goals. But for me, it's just about looking at the number. What are you cash flowing each month? And a lot of the people who are doing this will say that the more rentals you have, it's not the riskier the more rentals you have. It's actually riskier if you have less, just because something goes wrong at one property, and you only have one property, then you don't really have any other eggs to pull out of any other baskets to fix it. So
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
So what type of what type of properties are you looking for, or maybe you're looking for all types of properties in your business?
yeah, so in my business, I'm mostly looking for multifamily, smaller multifamily right now, and I think I'll grow to a point where I'm also looking at larger multifamily as well. But right now, I'm kind of in my capital building phase, where I'm just trying to kind of create a sustainable business and really hone down my marketing. So I'm targeting the right people, getting in front of motivated sellers, and kind of working that way, and just get my feet wet at the same time. So.
Yeah, because I think last time you mentioned that you closed one deal at the end of last year. One pretty significant deal for you, and that's kind of helped you propel a little bit further forward this year. Is that about right?
Yeah, so that was actually a few months ago. Kind of when I started doing this, I basically had used money that savings to get started with the business, and like a lot of the major startup costs for us was just kind of getting that initial marketing going. So we mostly use direct mail for our marketing. If you're an investor and you're listening to this, you may have gotten a letter from us. you don't need to call and cuss us out if you don't want to sell. You can just tell us that.
Yeah. that way your marketing dollars can be better used somewhere else. But yeah, just give them a call. Let them know, hey, we're not interested. I'm also an investor, and maybe you can have a new connection there. But give Jeremy a call. Let him know.
Right.
Yeah, it's because we've gotten calls from people who are like, "Oh, I'm a realtor," and they're very perturbed that we would even dare to message them. Or send them a piece of mail. It's like, well, I don't know that you're a realtor, and maybe if you're a realtor, you can call me and we can collaborate and talk instead of kind of the other way. We're all out here trying to succeed. So, and there's enough pie to go around.
It's really interesting to see that those people that are acting like that or being like that. It's like, hey, we're in the same business. Number one, number two, are you not marketing? Are you not marketing and having these things come up? Because you should be. If you're doing any sort of marketing, then you're going to come up with people. Hey, I'm an agent. Oh, hey, oh. Wow, I sent this to Pierre Pelican. Like, oh, okay. I sent this to somebody else. Like, oh, okay, yeah, let's chat.
Right.
We're in the same business, so there's probably, a good conversation that can come of that phone call versus, being perturbed.
That's the crazy part. You'd almost think the real estate agent would be almost more respectful of it because they understand that, that's just the business that we're in. It's like, that'd be like, I'm sure real estate agents get upset when they send mailers out and then somebody calls them and, they're all pissed off and then they're like, oh, that guy's a dick. It's like, well, you kind of just did the same thing.
Yeah. I've had agents say, hey, that's my client over there that you sent that mailer to. I'm like, okay, like, that's good. I'll take it off the list. That's great. Thank you for letting me know. Like, what's the problem? Like, that's perfect.
Right.
Well, you shouldn't be doing that. I'm like, what?
How do I know
that? It is
How
a
do I know?
blanket mailing list.
Right.
What are you talking about? Don't you understand this business? Anyways, Jeremy, so go a little bit further onto, you're looking to try and acquire multifamily? How do you get there? What are the steps?
Yeah, so that kind of starts off, if I'm targeting multifamily, so my basic bread and butter marketing list kind of starts with smaller multifamily, like I kind of said. So single family, condos, and 2 to 4 families. And then if I'm pulling something for 5+, which are considered commercial properties, that's kind of done with a different data provider, and that's something that I would target separately. So I'm actually not targeting 5+ family right now, even though I know some people are and they're having a good time with it. But it also depends. There's only a finite number of 5+ family, around here. A lot of 2 to 4 family, especially in like the Manchester area, like where you're kind of working rich and.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask, are you looking for more distressed properties, or are you looking for more, up to date? Like, what is there specific things in the property that you're looking for in terms of condition?
So yeah, it depends on kind of what I'm marketing to in that particular campaign. So I always kind of start with an equity filter to figure out if somebody can afford to sell to us or not. That's kind of the first test of, if they have a certain percentage of equity. We usually start around 35% for targeting equity, because if they have less than 35%, no matter what the circumstance, they may not be able to afford to sell to us.
Yeah, they may have to sell on market to really get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And some people get themselves in this bind. I don't know if you've seen this article, but I saw just kind of a statistic the other day, and I think it said that 72% of people who have purchased a home in the last year or two regret something about their decision, which I just thought was really. Yeah, because people probably overextended themselves with their finances, or now they're house poor. Or they like realize, oh, I paid way too much for this thing, and now I'm underwater on it. So that's a tough place to be in for a homeowner. Especially if you don't want to live there anymore. But so we kind of start with that equity filter, and then we go on from there. So we do different marketing campaigns. So like I said, that changes, and we try to do multiple touches. So we'll usually send a postcard and then follow up with the sequences we usually send a letter and then follow up with a sequence of postcards. And so far, I'm pretty amazed actually at the amount of people who don't call in to the first letter, but then once they get a postcard, they're interested, or maybe it kind of jogs their memory that we exist. So.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this too, is that like the statistic is you got to send at least 6 postcards or forms of mail when you're talking about mail to get a response. Do they happen on mail piece 1 or mail piece 2? Yes, but 6 is kind of like that key number to be able to get some sort of response. I did that in a couple markets, in particular one in Dover, and I had great response. I mean, it was interesting to see, though, the same as you, like, the third mail, they're like, hey, I've gotten your mail now 3 times. I figured I'd give you a call. It's like, cool. All right, good. Let's talk. Now, so you're looking for equity in the property. The condition doesn't really matter from what it sounded like you'd said, but it's more about the individual seller and what their either motivation is, whether they're distressed or they don't like the property, or they're just trying, maybe they're moving. Is that kind of, is it up to really the individual seller, or is it like the property? What do you think it is?
Yeah, so it's definitely a situation by situation thing. Everybody's different. Everybody owns or purchases real estate for different reasons. Some people inherit properties when a family member dies, or so we're not necessarily looking at just the condition of the property, but we are looking at the kind of situation as a whole. And there's plenty of properties that people have called about and said, hey, I got your letter. I'm looking for this amount, and they're kind of looking for retail pricing. And if they have no kind of motivations to sell quickly, or they don't want a cash offer for their house, then, I've referred them to realtors. I know I've referred a couple to you actually, Rich, because, there's really, I'm never going to try to give somebody an offer that doesn't make sense to them, or I know that doesn't work for them. And I think that's kind of where wholesalers sometimes get a bad rap with agents. Probably, that one agent that I told you about who called and was so upset that we sent her a piece of mail. Maybe she hasn't had a good experience in the past with wholesalers, and certainly, like right now, wholesalers are not regulated. So I don't hold a real estate license. So I'm not. Basically, there's no board of realtors that somebody can report me to if they feel like I'm being unethical. They would have to go to like the attorney general or something. So it really is a lot more self-policing on like thinking to yourself, am I doing the right thing? Am I being fair? And just trying to help people. It's the same thing that you do as a real estate agent. Just I'm not listing properties. I'm not really that interested in getting my real estate license because I kind of want to stay in my lane and work on what I'm doing instead of trying to focus on doing multiple things not that great. I want to be really good at one thing. And so, yeah, wholesalers do get a bad rap sometimes, but I'm not one of the people that's really interested in making lousy offers to people who would have no problem selling on the MLS.
Right. So then let's say, you do get something, right? Do you give yourself a certain time frame to kind of flip that? Or is it just, if you can't, you hang on to it? Or, how does that whole process look? I guess that should be the question. How does that process look after you offer 200 grand to somebody and then they say, yep, let's do it. Like what happens after that in your world?
Yeah. So ideally if you kind of are coming across a property and you get it under contract, ideally you may have an idea in the back of your head as to who that might be interested in that kind of property. So that's where it really helps to understand your buyers list, which is something I'm trying to expand because my buyers list is pretty sad right now. So that's where networking comes in. I've gone to meetups and met with people who's like, yeah, I want to be in your buyers list. And so we can add them, and I usually just kind of ask, like, what are you looking for? And so the biggest thing I've also learned, too, is that you really want to sell to somebody who will close, because if you miss out on a deal or your seller is counting on, this offer going through and then your buyer backs out, it puts your seller in a bad position. It puts you in a bad position if you weren't planning on having the capital to close on it. So I like to try not to get anything under contract unless I know that if I can't wholesale it, I'm going to close on it myself and either flip it or keep it as a rental or whatnot. So,
well, and that's what's helpful to build your name and your brand in the wholesaling realm is dealing honestly, effectively, and not having deals fall apart, and then the seller gets upset, and the buyer or buyer's agent, whoever's brought you that buyer, is also going to be upset. That's a good thing to build your buyers list. Did you go to that the local Simplified? You went to that last week, 2 weeks ago, Simplified at XL.
Yeah, we went there and brought a friend who's kind of trying to get into a house hack who Rich, and so we had a good opportunity. Listened to a lender talk for a little bit, and then somebody else talked about doing some larger multifamily syndications. So that was good.
Awesome. Then, let's say you're working on, just to wrap up, summarize, you're working on getting like condos, single families, maybe 2 to 4 units, in order to, wholesale those, build some capital, and to eventually purchase something. So will you work with agents? Like, how does the agent relationship? I know that a lot of agents just don't understand what wholesaling is, and they're like, well, I had to get licensed to sell real estate and you don't. Well, that's not fair. I think that might even be like, some of the sentiment there.
I was going to ask that too, how that reaction was with agents with that on that end.
I imagine that's probably some of the sentiment. I don't know. It's just an assumption. But yeah, like what's been your experience, good, bad, or indifferent, or maybe not?
Yeah, so I've actually had agents call in because they've got their clients have gotten mailers and so I don't target anything that's on market, but maybe sometimes some slip through and they are on market, going on market, or the seller signed a contract already with them. So I've gotten calls from them, and if that was the case, if we were going to buy the property, let's like say somebody had a house for $300,000 and we could offer $250,000. Then the agent, still being under contract, would just add their fee onto what we could pay. So,
Gotcha.
So yeah, I mean, we essentially, once we get the contract, sorry, I kind of got off onto a little bit of a tangent, but so once we get the contract, we're just going to kind of try to find somebody who was looking for that property or send it out, and then there's kind of two ways that a wholesaler can dispo property. They can either do an assignment of the contract, so you're essentially assigning your rights in the contract over to somebody else. Or in the past, we've done double closes as well, where we actually take ownership of the property. So we have a transaction with the seller, and then we sell the property to the buyer. Pretty much.
Yeah, on the same day, double closing, like on the same day or like within the same hour.
Yeah, that's the goal. I did one and we held on to it for like a week because, again, going back to make sure your buyers close. Yeah. He had a bunch of issues with his hard money lender he was using. It was, kind of turned into a more stressful and more kind of complicated process than it needed. But, lessons learned. That's all we can do.
Right. So then what would you say, if somebody wanting to maybe get into this side of investing, what would you kind of tell them as maybe things that they don't see on, because I feel like a lot of people, especially, I don't know if you know, I'm 25, right? So a lot of people in my generation see things on Instagram and TikTok, and they see this like 30-second video on why you should wholesale. And obviously, you see that for agents, you see it for loan officers, and then, you can only fit so much info in a quick TikTok video. So everyone portrays it as this is the, this easy thing. You're just going to, buy and flip contracts and you're going to become a millionaire in 300 days, right? What would you give somebody for advice that really wants to maybe start getting into this wholesaling? And then, part B of that would be, what are some things maybe that you weren't expecting that are a lot harder than you thought?
Yeah, so it's funny that you say that because I see on TikTok sometimes too the exact same thing you're talking about, and I will say that it's not easy. Although I do know some people that make it look easy because they're just getting tons of stuff under contract. They're closing on a bunch of it to flip, and then they're basically wholesaling the rest of it. They've also put a lot of legwork into getting their processes squared away to get to that point. So I would just say put the work in. It's not like something you need to sit there and bang against the desk 80 hours a week in order to get there. But for us, like one of the big pillars of getting started was trying to build a local brand, because people ultimately are going to sell to who they like and who they trust. So if you have a bandit sign out that says John buys houses and you have a phone number, like I would be way less apt to sell to somebody like that as opposed to somebody who sent me a letter saying, hey, you can call my office if you're interested in selling. And then they see the website at the bottom of the letter and they go to our website, they see our reviews, and they can kind of tell, that's a legit home buyer. So
Right. You're not just some random dude that's throwing signs up next to a stoplight and hoping that people call him.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with John's business.
It works for them. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe they get like 100 deals a month. I don't know.
I just drove by at the end of the off ramp. Chloe buys homes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with Chloe's business.
Just a different business
maybe
model.
Chloe's doing really well.
Yeah, it's
But
like you said though, it's the processes, right? And you know, maybe they do have that. Maybe that's one piece of their marketing, where they've got the bandit signs and then the mailers and the website and Google pay per click and SEO and all that stuff. But well, yeah,
and ultimately, being willing to make those investments into the business is big too. Like if you really want to build that local brand, it does take time and it does take capital. Like we're putting in thousands a month right now into our SEO, so we're trying to show up more organically for people who are looking for kind of somebody like us who are trying to sell their house quickly and easily.
well, like, and I think I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that it's challenging to get to or kind of be at the point where you're spending a lot of money. You're not, you don't have a lot of income, but you know that SEO takes time. And, it's one of those things that I'm really looking forward to pay off eventually, because ultimately, what's the best kind of lead? Somebody who comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm interested in selling my property for cash." Us having to kind of cast this wide net and hope that we get some responses from it. So.
Right. It's like a layup at that point. If they just come and say, I want to sell it, I need a cash offer. It's like, oh, I can do that. That's easy.
Yeah, then it's just figuring out coming to an agreement. I think over the last 2 years, the business that you're in, it was still, you know, lucrative, but I think it was less hard to find those people because you could literally list your house, you know, within $50,000 of realistically where it would sell, and it would sell. I think we're shifting towards a decelerating market. We're kind of already in it a little bit, and we'll be able to, you know, your business will be able to hopefully get some, you know, fruits of that labor. And I think the legwork that you've done up until now to get your, you know, your brand out there and have people know, you know, where you are and who you are is helpful, because, you know, if as we kind of roll into this area where, like, you know, we're seeing expireds and canceleds and terminateds and all this stuff. I mean, granted, most of them are just from, you know, sellers that have decided not to, or they couldn't get a price that they needed, whatever the case may be. But I think, you know, you'll have some opportunity to be able to do some good business moving forward, you know, over the next 18 months probably.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to our industry in a way, where everyone was just backing on refis. Just like, you know, a lot of sellers were just backing on the fact that they could just put their house up and sell it for whatever people, you know, obviously would be willing to pay, and that could be an exorbitant amount. Where the people now that are doing well are, you know, the loan officers were the ones that were still out networking, still out focused on getting purchase business. Where I feel like, you know, it's the same thing with wholesaling. You know, the ones that were still focused on the brand and not just sitting back and just being like, oh, it is what it is. Like, we can't do anything about it, right? The ones that were, you know, spending the money and the time to do it are the ones that are gonna, I think, pop out of this. So I think he's definitely in a good spot.
Jeremy, one last thing. You got anything that you haven't said that you want to kind of round out our interview with?
No, I mean, I would just say that wholesalers do have their part in the market, and they are definitely not all created equally. My goal when I go into a property, we get a phone call from somebody responding to a letter, is like, how can I help? Not how can I make money on this? The money will come once you start helping people, and so if you kind of start wholesaling or you're interested in it, or you have questions, I can certainly help with what I know. But just keep networking and keep marketing, and just do the right thing. So.
And where can people find more information on you?
Well, if you have a property that you'd like to sell for cash, you can go to tallpinepropertiesnh.com. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook. It's Jeremy Joseph, or you can go to Instagram. It's Jeremy_invest.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great. We'll catch up later, Jeremy. Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
See ya.
Sweet.
What do you think?
That was awesome. Yeah, no, just learning more about, that they're actual people and they're not like just like
some aberration out in space. Like, what is a wholesaler?
Right. Well, I think, like you said, wholesaling may have this negative connotation to it, but it's just like the rest of the real estate world where not all of them are created equal. Just like, there's bad agents out there. There's really good agents. There's scummy LOs, and then there's really good LOs, right? So it sounds like it's all in the same realm, right? There's good wholesalers, and there's ones that will just do whatever it needs to take to get a deal done, whether they're screwing the consumer or not.
Yeah, and one bad apple will ruin the bunch, right?
Right.
It's they're not all created the same. That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, no, and that was good just to dive into, like I never knew that you could like close the same day and then, an hour later, that's when they could do the transaction. Like, there's things like that I didn't know, right?
Yeah.
So it was super cool to be able to hear that type of stuff.
From my understanding, I've read and heard that, the wholesaler and the seller will be closing in this room, and then they'll close it out, and they'll actually bring everything right over to the next room, and they'll close it out. No money ever touched the wholesaler's hands. It just got transferred right over, just like a purchase transaction from a buyer.
Right. That's selling their house, and then it just literally, the title company handles it.
Just goes right over.
Right.
Yep, and closes that one out.
Yeah, that's sweet.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, absolutely. That was good.
What do you got going on?
Today I got a meeting with an attorney, not for any of my legal reasons. I'm not in trouble, just networking with attorneys. And then after that, just I think 3 or 4 pre-approval is just getting numbers of people. So busy afternoon, but I love it. So what do you got going on?
Good. I got to go pick up some gymnastics stuff for my daughter, some like a pad and a...
Is it like for your house? Like to?
Yeah, but it's just small stuff. She's only 5, so it's like just little stuff.
Yeah.
I got to go pick that up, and I've got to meet a tenant later to show the property in Manchester, and I got to set up like an open house tours for another property in Newmarket for a tenant, and I got a showing as well this.
Nice, busy, jam-packed afternoon. I like it. Or an evening.
yeah. Well, it goes right into the night.
Right.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, that was great. You can find now both of us at findnhhomes.com.
Find NH Homes for Sale.
ForSale.com.
Yeah. Check it out. Go on there. You can reach out to myself or Matt directly.
Yeah.
Right through there. Look at properties. Get your home valuation.
Right. I was gonna say you could talk to Rich or myself directly through it. So if you got questions on what your home's worth, can you actually go see this house? It's an awesome website to be able to go check out, and it's. I don't want to mention other people's names, but it's like those bigger companies, those bigger online companies. But you actually get connected with Rich right away, and then you can literally go see properties, and who you're talking to. You're always talking to Rich, and it's awesome.
Well, and one caveat there, it'll be either Rich or my mother since we work together. So, if it calls in and I'm not available, she's very much likely going to be picking up the phone, and she can help you as well because she's an agent.
Yes.
And we'll both be there on your side along with Matt.
Yes. And that is episode 9 of Why Money Matters.
Money matters, baby.